You're listening to the Favorite Marriage Podcast, a place where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Favorite Marriage Podcast. We are your hosts, Monty and Jeannine Mora.
We are so excited that you have joined with us today because this is a very special episode, right, Monty?
Yes.
It is our 25th episode.
25, right?
Yeah.
Or 25, however, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, our 25th episode. This is a really big deal.
It is.
For us. When you think about the average podcaster in the podcast world, they will usually quit between the 8th and the 12th podcast or the 8th and 12th episode. And so for us to get to 25 episode is a really, really big deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, to think about, we started in July of last year, and here we are in March, 25 episodes later. And we've been going at it, trying to produce at least one episode every 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think we've been pretty good at getting those out. So, wow, here we are.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So today we're going to take you through our journey from the beginning days of the podcast to where we are today. Yeah. We're going to be talking about different episodes and as well as just how to celebrate these milestones, not just in your life, but in your marriage and also within your family. So It's going to be really, really cool today. I think I'm excited for this episode.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and start with favorite podcast episode. So Jeannine, what was your favorite podcast episode that we recorded?
I would have to say Marriage Cargo. Marriage Cargo because I think that episode really just took me back to our summer vacation when we did our cruise. And it was such a special time for us. So when we did that episode, we actually took these experiences that we had on the ship and actually the whole entire vacation, we were able to take some of those experiences and turn them into some marriage nuggets, which when we were actually in that moment, we had no idea that God could actually use that scenario or the situations that we faced into something that we could apply to marriage.
Yeah. We first talked about that or taught that episode in our marriage class on a Wednesday night, and then it ended up becoming one of our episodes that we produced. And so, that was really a good one there.
Yeah. What about yours?
I would have to say the episode regarding climbing your marriage mountain. And I don't know exactly which episode it was. I should know it, but climbing your marriage mountain. And I like that because of the analogy of how a married couple, they're like a climbing partner. And, when a couple gets married, that's kind of like their base camp when they get married on their wedding day, and how together they have this amazing vision of they're going to climb this amazing marriage mountain. And so I like it also because we live here in Colorado and we can really put that analogy to work because we see and we have some beautiful mountains here in Colorado. So yeah.
I think when we watched the movie Everest after we did that episode, it really was very helpful to see actual climbers in action and watch them actually in that death zone that we talked about in that episode.
Yeah.
And the death zone being that place where people, I guess, basically just lose motivation, right? Is that kind of what happens there? Or I know it's an area where it's freezing temperatures, obviously. There's lack of oxygen. And I loved how we were able to relate that to marriage, and when marriages are in that place where you're feeling like there's no life.
Yeah.
And people just quit. They stop working, they stop climbing. And then that's where the danger comes in is just freezing up basically. And quite literally when you're actually climbing a mountain like Everest.
Yeah. We see that a lot with marriages who just kind of get stagnant and they don't want to keep climbing and they basically quit. And that's when they enter that death zone. And so, that movie was really good, and it really highlighted that piece there. So, Well, let's go ahead and talk about a couple of our episodes. Top 3 episodes that we've produced in the Favorite Marriage podcast. Can you guess what the top episode is, meaning the most listens of that one episode?
As
Number
of
one?
like right now.
As of right
'Cause
now,
I know
today.
like we talked about some of the analytics a while back, and I think you were saying it was like one of the earlier episodes, like say these 3 phrases.
Yeah, exactly. So it's episode number 7.
Okay, yeah.
And it was titled Say These 3 Phrases Often. And we talked about the different types of love languages, not the Gary Chapman love languages. We created our own love languages. Do you remember what they were?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I love you.
Yeah. Which was what type of language?
The intimate language.
Yeah.
The I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, which
Yeah.
was the apology language.
And then I appreciate you, or thank you.
Yes, which was the gratitude language. Yeah, so that was the most listened to episode even as of today.
That's crazy. I would think it was maybe one of the later ones, but
Yeah.
that's good then. I mean, they're still listening
Yeah,
to some of the first ones.
yeah. Guess what the second most listened to episode was?
I don't know.
So episode 2. So number 2 most listened to was episode 2, the Who's Leading Who part 2. And that's where we talked about Psalm
okay.
23,
Yes.
the Lord is my shepherd. And we broke that down, related it to marriage.
2
Yeah.
episodes. I remember that. I really liked that episode because of the little sheep
Yeah.
on our short that we produced.
Yeah.
I remember the little sheep just chewing, and I don't know,
Yeah.
sticks out.
But also that episode was where we, as we are talking, we said a phrase of keep showing up. Remember that phrase we
Right.
used in that episode?
Because we were referring to like the question about, in Psalm, back up a little bit, when Psalm 23, where in the end it talks about the good shepherd
Yeah.
preparing the table in the presence of your enemies, and just coming to the table as husband and wife and being fed by the Father, just being led by our good shepherd.
Sure.
And the question was like, what if my spouse does not show up to the table? I'm coming to the table daily, but my spouse refuses to come and sit at the table. And I think that's when you mentioned, and it's all about just keep showing up.
Keep showing up. Yeah. And we based it on 1 Corinthians chapter 7, where Paul the Apostle said that if one spouse is standing for the marriage, is believing for the marriage, even the other one who might not be showing up, the Bible says that the marriage is still sanctified. And so that's why we encouraged married couples or a spouse that if your spouse is not showing up to the table that God's prepared, you keep showing up and you can still continue to honor the marriage covenant between you and your spouse.
I also think of the scripture of not growing weary and doing good. So every time you come to the table, you're doing a good thing for your marriage and for your family.
Yeah.
But it's kind of awesome how that keep showing up phrase just kept coming up in our marriage group and people that we know, friends, and they would just say that. And we're like, we got to make that a shirt.
Yeah. We actually did produce our first merchandise, our T-shirts, our hoodies, and crew necks with the statement, keep showing up.
We forgot the shirt.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to go to the website and check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so episode number 3, the top third episode that was most listened to. Take a guess.
Get naked.
That should have been top
Well, I'm
number
surprised that wasn't your favorite episode.
one. Yeah. So it was episode number 6. And get this, we titled that episode Overcoming Weariness in Marriage. And that was our Labor Day weekend exclusive episode.
Well, I could totally understand that.
Yeah.
Because in America, in the world, I think everybody, when you talk to people and you ask them, how you doing? It's, doing fine, just tired. I mean, I hear that in the workplace all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just tired. So because we're such busy people. And I think when we're busy as a family, it affects your marriage.
It does.
I mean, if you are not taking time for your marriage within all your busyness, you will get weary.
Yeah, it's
makes
such a common
sense.
thing. Yeah. And I think in that episode, we also mentioned Matthew 11, I think 28, 29, where Christ says, "Come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy laden, and I will
Yeah.
give you rest." And we talked about honoring the Sabbath and taking the Sabbath together as a married couple. And I can really see why that was a most listened to episode because,
Yeah.
like they said, the world is ran by the tired, and we're all tired.
Yeah, we actually did that this weekend. We were so tired and we had to just listen to ourselves, and we had a really nice weekend together and
Yeah.
just said, no, we're not going to do this, or this, and we're going to stay home and take care of each other.
Yeah. We did do something pretty cool this weekend.
We did a thing this weekend. Hopefully you like it. Just thought we'd change it up.
Yep. This is our brand new studio setup here. And we did do that on Saturday, but we did rest on Sunday.
Fun,
Yeah,
though.
it was. Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was so good.
Anytime we get to go shopping together, it's fun.
Ching, 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 ching. No, it was really, really good. So hopefully you enjoy this new studio setup. So let's talk a little bit about numbers with the podcast in 2023 and 2024. Okay, I think the biggest and most exciting news that we were able to receive in 2023 and even the beginning of 24 is the podcast ranking, the favorite marriage podcast ranking. So our podcast was ranked by the Feedspot.com as the 7th best podcast in 2023. And also today it holds the ranking of the 7th best podcast to follow in 2024.
Clarify, best marriage podcast, right?
Yeah, the best marriage podcast in 2023. And they ranked like the top 40 marriage podcasts, and we ranked as number 7, even as of today, which is pretty neat and pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that still blows my mind, and all glory and honor to God,
Yeah.
because there is no way, a podcast like ours starting in July of last year is ranking up there with some of the big marriage podcasts that we listen to and
Sure.
we've learned from. So we are just honored, we're humbled and grateful, and we are thankful for you guys.
Yeah. Yes, we are. Couple other numbers exciting that for us. And again, y'all, we're sharing this because these are milestones, and we're going to be talking about the importance of celebrating these milestones. Our podcast, to God be the glory, we are now in 11 countries. So we have audience
Wow.
of listeners in 11 countries in the world. So we can almost say that our podcast is international.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I think we need to go visit those countries.
Yeah.
When are we going to get to that part?
I don't know. As soon as we get an invite. So the most recent country that popped up was Costa Rica.
Oh,
And so Costa Rica,
We love
we would
Costa Rica.
love, yeah, we love Costa Rica. We did missionary work. Remember we did missionary work in
We did.
97 there? And we did,
97? No, was it that?
it was
long?
2007 actually. I'm
Yes, I
sorry.
was going to say because Janisa was born.
Yeah, 2007, and we did missionary work there. So for all of our listeners there in Costa Rica, we'd love to come and do some marriage ministry there. Barbados,
Okay.
the United Kingdom,
Nice.
Germany, Kenya, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and then the good old USA,
Yeah. And how many states are we in the U.S.?
28.
Okay, we need to get to that 50. We got to
Yeah.
get those states up.
And the top 2 states that listen most to our podcast is, of course, Colorado and
So
Nebraska.
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 Well, we got family.
Big
in
Red.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so that's pretty neat.
Thank
That's a really huge milestone for us. And then also this year we produced or we created our very first website, thefavoritemarriage.com.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of,
medias.
the social media piece. And then also we jumped on the idea of motivational videos as well.
Right. And I think you're doing such a good job with those motivational videos. I feel like there's this cinematic anointing over you, kind of probably coming back from when you used to do dramas back in the day.
Yeah, the acting days when we used to do dramas. Yeah.
You were more like the star. Yeah.
So this last motivational video, it was called "You Are Stronger Than the Storm," and I have a special guest on that one.
You do?
Yes.
And who would that be?
Her name is Jeannine Mora.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that was fun. I appreciate you bringing me in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really good motivational video, not just because he brought me in on it, but just the story about the storms. You got to watch it. Go and watch it if you haven't. And what I love about these motivational videos, Monty, is that, these are almost like a witness track back in the day, when you handed somebody a track. If you know somebody who is battling like for their marriage or just needing some encouragement in their marriage, it could be just a quick like, hey, listen to this, because they're really short, right? Like anywhere from 2 to 6 minutes, I think you have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So sharing those with them and encouraging them with those motivational videos, then hopefully then they would tune in and listen to the other episodes that cover so many more topics.
Yeah. They're so exciting to make. We just be able to dip into the creative ability, because that I've always wanted to do motivational videos for quite a few years now, and so to see that come to pass and to fruition is really, really neat for us, and so that's a cool milestone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so why are we talking about all these milestones?
Good question. Yeah, good question. So, which kind of leads to our podcast topic today is, why is it important for a married couple and a family to celebrate the milestones and their accomplishments within their life, within their marriage, within their family, whether the accomplishments or the milestones are big or they can be something very small.
Right.
So we want to encourage our audience today that whatever milestones or accomplishments, and you've seen God just show up and show off his power, his glory, we want you to stop, sit in the moment, and celebrate that milestone that the Lord has done inside of your life.
Yeah. And we want to encourage those of you who you do this already, like keep doing it. Don't grow weary in doing good,
Yes.
right? And we also want to encourage those of you who might be just starting a family, or maybe you don't do this and you never realized how important this is. It is important for a family to establish very important milestones, small or big, to encourage value with that person, with the family, with your spouse, with your children. Your children see it with mom and dad, like, oh, mom and dad really love each other. They value each other because you celebrate one another. And I think we've done a pretty good job over the years.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's our encouragement today to our listeners is to make that a moment of celebration and honor each other. And I like what you said, Jeannine, about it really does add value. So when you stop and you celebrate that person or that moment, you're placing value and you're giving meaning to that very moment that you're celebrating. And I think back to a story in the Old Testament, in the book of Joshua, chapter 4. Do you remember when Joshua had now assumed leadership and he brought the nation across the Jordan River? And when they got to the promised land on the other side, Canaan land, what God instructed Joshua to do was to have a man from all of the 12 tribes of Israel to take a stone. And each man was to set up this stone, and they actually called it the stones of remembrance in Joshua chapter 4. And so this stones of remembrance was symbolic of God's love, God's faithfulness, God's miraculous power, and all the things that he did. And so even in the scripture and even different cultures, they have learned how to establish some type of symbol and ritualism to celebrate those milestone moments.
Right. I'm thinking you're talking about remembrance stones and we are talking about milestones. I can't help to think about the cornerstone.
Yes.
You know, Christ being our cornerstone.
He is.
And what is a cornerstone?
It's that one stone. So when two pieces of a wall come together and that one stone is at the top, that just kind of brings those two pieces together, those two
Right.
walls. That's that cornerstone. It's a solidifying factor
Yes.
for the wall.
And I love like how you said that, like two pieces coming together and being that cornerstone. And as a husband and as a wife, because this is a marriage podcast, we're talking
Yeah.
about marriage, a husband and wife come together and allow Christ to be that
Yeah,
cornerstone.
that's so good.
From that cornerstone, we, husband and wife, we build a strong family, a strong family legacy. And in that legacy, we are creating those milestones and celebrating those stones of remembrance.
Yeah.
So it's an important thing.
Yeah, that'll preach right there. That's so good. Milestones, stones of remembrance, and of course, Christ is our cornerstone. Yeah. So thinking about milestones, why do we even celebrate? Why should we even celebrate them? So I came up with a few ideas for us to talk about today, and I think for our listeners' understanding, we celebrate milestones simply because we want to remind ourselves. It's a reminder of the hard work that we put into that very moment.
Yeah.
Like even today, here we are, 25 episodes in. We have a brand new studio. All of this is just a reminder of the hard work that we put in as we team up with, Team Jesus, Team God. And it's a time where we just get to celebrate and remember, we put a lot of work into this.
And how do we remember? Like just quickly, we remember by journaling. We do a lot of journaling, looking back after you've written something years later. And it's like, wow, look how far we've come, right? Journaling, scrapbooking, photo books. I mean, keeping, just logs of events on even your social media.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you can remember. Creating like curio cabinets or our quote unquote shrines is what we've called them of just all these things of accomplishments of our children and we say that in a silly way like our shrines, but we put them up for a reason. Like we know the struggle our kids, went through school and the things they've accomplished and overcome, and only we know that as a family. And so to have that up there in our loft, when we see it there and we're like, thank God for his faithfulness and for covering them and being with them. Not only through high school, but through college. And we have the window with all of our tassels. Even we got a couple in there, right?
Yes.
We went back to college at age 40, in our 40s, right? And that was a milestone. It was a great accomplishment. And it didn't come easy.
Sure. Yeah.
And we understand that. And so we want to remember and be able to look back and see that when we are in a place where it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do this task, like even our podcast, like, I don't know, this is a big leap of faith. And then we look back and we're like, God was with us there and he will be with us again. He will continue to follow us and be with us.
Yeah, he sure will. Yeah, that's so good. We need to remind ourselves of the hard work that we put in and celebrate those moments. The second one is reflecting upon God's faithfulness. So when we stop and celebrate a milestone and accomplishment, we get to look back and reflect upon how good God has been. And Jeannine, you and I can both attest, looking at our life, our marriage journey from day one to 28 years later, we can look back and reflect upon and say, man, God has been so faithful to us, hasn't he? And it's important for a married couple to reflect upon the goodness of God in their marriage and in their family.
Yeah. And I think that's why for us, for you and I, when we see other people excel and we want to champion them, we want to get behind them and say, yay, God, and yay for you. And I mean, sometimes it's just a like on a Facebook post or a text or just a phone call, and it can be so simple. but just to acknowledge their great feat, or whatever it was, their accomplishment. I mean, it'll say a lot to them that, someone noticed.
Sure.
Because we understand our journey and where we've been, like you said, from, this journey of 28 years. And we know a lot of their journeys, a lot of our family's journeys, that we see them doing great things right now. And it's like, yes,
Yeah.
go get it. And we celebrate them. We don't look back with a jealous eye or look at them and be like, why not us? Things like
Sure.
that, because God's doing a different work in our lives that he's doing in their lives. And we know their journey is not our journey, but they've had a journey. And everybody has a journey. And so I think it's really important as a husband and wife, we set that example to our kids, and we teach them to champion each other and encourage one another and be there for each other and support each other. Remember those times we drug our kids to weekend wrestling meets for Caleb and soccer games for Jared and softball games for Janisa or pageants. I mean, the boys sitting, oh my gosh, but they did it, and they might have not done it willingly, but we showed them the importance of loving each other, encouraging one another and saying, you're worth my time. And now I think we see it. We see the fruit, because they're so close and they love each other now that they're all in their 20s and they're building their own families.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
It definitely was worth it. Another reason why I think we need to celebrate milestones is because it gives us a reason to keep moving forward. Whenever we stop and we kind of just relish in the moment, reflect upon the faithfulness of God, and then we say from that moment on, now we have a cause, now we have a reason, now we have a mission to keep moving forward and to keep putting in the work, to keep showing up, and to continue to accomplish whatever that next milestone is. I think for our next milestone for the podcast would be getting to the 50th episode.
Yeah.
So probably in about a year from now, we might be there. And so it gives us that reason. Hey, we got to keep moving forward. We're not going to quit. There's a mountain we're going to climb together. And we've seen how God has been using this ministry to bless and to touch other couples. So we have a reason to keep moving forward.
Well, and it's just opened up so many doors for us as well that we never even expected, speaking engagements and being able to speak at MOPS and in Denver at the Valentine's Day banquet. I mean, we would have never thought by starting the podcast that these doors would be open, and we keep seeing those doors being open. So yeah, I mean, just who knows what God's going to do. I'm sure we can get to 50 way quicker than 1 year if we just quit our jobs. Which we would love to do, don't get me wrong. I mean, we love our jobs and we're grateful for our jobs, but we're having a good time and we're having fun and we're seeing the impact that God is, he's using our testimony and where he's brought us from to help and encourage other marriages. And that is just a great feeling to know that you're being a tool in the Father's hands.
Yeah. And just thinking about God's hands being with us, being in the Father's hands, not only with us, but our listeners, God is with you definitely. And Jeannine, as we wrap up our time together, we want to express just a deep gratitude, a deep gratitude of thanks for all of our listeners, our marriage community. Thank you for sharing our podcast, for listening to our podcast. Just thinking about all the different marriage podcasts out there that our listeners have chosen to listen to the favorite marriage. I mean, that is a truly big honor. And so we like to say thank you. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you for following us on social media. Thank you for the words of encouragement. I mean, we just want to say thank you so much. And we truly, truly appreciate our listeners.
We do. And we want to encourage you guys to spread the word if we have said anything on any podcast that has just given you just wind in your sails and it has encouraged you in any way, please share. Because like we said before, there's only so much we can do in person and through marriage classes. And we felt like a podcast can reach a lot more people. So share, like, subscribe.
Yeah. So when we did when we did episode number 1, we ended the episode with a phrase, and that phrase became the tagline of all of our conclusions of our episodes. So, Jeannine, I'm going to ask you today to take us home with our special phrase that we like to say as we close off our episodes.
Yes, well, Monty and I, we truly do pray that you would experience God's favor
on your forever. Thanks for listening to The Favorite Marriage, where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. If you enjoy this resource, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time on The Favorite Marriage Podcast.